I'm Chair Kerr. On my right, I have Commissioner Hoff, Commissioner Patterson, and on my left, new Commissioner Lane Jenkins, Commissioner Jorgensen, and Commissioner Larson. Commissioner Moss has not made it yet, but we'll see. I'll start with a legislative thought and a prayer, and then Commissioner Jenkins, if you want to introduce yourself as well, we'll give you an opportunity.
Okay.
So you can grandstand if you wish.
Perfect.
I'm joking, obviously. So I've had an interesting, call it fractured path in my professional life. I've sort of arced through teaching. I did a number of years in court as a clerk, and I've done a number of years for municipal government. And I just wanted to share the thought that I've never had a better experience than when I'm working with people who are in public service. And by and large, it's populated by, and I know my sample size is smaller than maybe statistically relevant, but by and large, it's populated by the most genuine, well-intentioned, well-meaning, and accomplished people who are willing to sacrifice a lot for those around them. So I just wanted to share the thought that when it comes down to the brass tacks, when there's an emergency or when there's a need, I think, was it Mr. Rogers that said you look to the helpers? And generally, my experience with those who are in public service are the helpers. So thank you all for your service. Anyways, that's the thought. I'll offer a quick prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're very grateful for this day, for this time to come together and do the public's business. We ask for thy guidance, and we offer our thanks for thy blessings and say it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah. So my name is Lane Jenkins, like he said. I spent about the last year and a half on the Parks and Rec Commission. I'm now obviously on the Planning Commission. You did nothing but praise me. I'm a lifelong public servant. I am a Parks and Recreation professional. I've worked in just about every position in Parks and Recreation that you can think of. My dad was a Parks and Recreation director for 32 years, and that's kind of what my family has always done, and we love it, and I love it, and it brings me so much joy to just, help people, and that's kind of what we do, and I'm happy to be here, happy to kind of learn what this is all about, and I don't know if there's anything else, but I was born and raised here in Centerville, so I've lived here almost exclusively other than school when I was gone, so.
Yeah. Yes, well, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for filling out the quorum.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, plan on the next 8 years.
I'll be here.
If we could all stand and pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's not always that we get more than 0 people. So we do deeply appreciate that. I also wanted to note that we have in attendance some members of the Youth City Council that will be observing, and we welcome them, especially if you have questions, come and talk to us, and let's walk through whatever questions you have. So on the business agenda today, we have first the public hearing on the zone text amendment for 1255-110. Ms. Black, are you going to head up that? Mm-hmm. You want to start in?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Like Chair Kerr said, this is a zone text amendment request for 12.55. And just for Lane, this is a legislative decision, so you guys are making a recommendation to the City Council on whether or not to approve it, deny it, or whatever you decide to do. So a little background on this request. The applicant came in a couple months ago and submitted an application for a building permit for a retaining wall. And we looked at it and we determined that his wall was too high to fit the ordinance, so we denied the permit. He came back a couple of different times. I think we did 6 different revisions of plans trying to fit what he wanted to do into the parameters of the ordinance, and we just couldn't make it work. So he's come in with this application hoping to change the maximum fence height requirement. So that's kind of the background. The current code allows for up to 6 feet in fences and walls or walls in the rear or side yard. So that's just if you have a flat yard, you can have a 6-foot fence in your side or rear yard. If there's a difference of grade between you and your neighbor, though, we calculate the height a little differently. So if you and your neighbor have a difference of grade, we take the average of that difference of grade and add it to the fence height. So I have a little illustration in the packet. I know it's kind of confusing, and if you have questions about that, we can go over that later, or I cleaned off the whiteboard if we need to draw some stuff out. But that's what the current code says. So Mr. Jensen is asking for a zone text amendment change that distinguishes between non-structurally engineered walls and fences and structurally engineered walls and fences. So he's proposing that we say in the code, non-structurally engineered fences and walls up to 7 feet, and then structurally engineered walls and fences up to 8 feet. So in the packet, we've put in a little something that the code could potentially say to incorporate that. And then in our review, we looked at his request against the general plan. And the general plan doesn't really talk about fence height, it just talks about the different materials that you can use in a fence. So the general plan doesn't have anything against his request. But as we talked about it with staff, there are several different factors that we need to consider, and I listed a few in the staff report, but not a comprehensive list of things that consider. And one of the big ones was weather. We have a really high wind in Centerville sometimes, so how is the higher fence going to do with that? And the other big one that we talked about was, should the city distinguish between fences and walls? Should fences have their own definition? Should walls have their own definition? Should they be separated? So that's something that we should probably consider. And then the other big one that we talked about was in the hillside overlay zone, we allow retaining walls up to 8 feet. And it doesn't talk about if a 6-foot fence could go on top of that or not. So that's kind of ambiguous. So this application doesn't really address those things. And so we as staff feel like we need a more comprehensive review of this ordinance, and things do need to change. We need to look at it and maybe amend some things, but this application doesn't look at all of those impacts that could happen. So we're recommending that you recommend to the City Council denial of this application until we can have a more comprehensive review. So that's one option you can have. If you want the applicant to go do a more comprehensive review, you could always table it and he could go do that. I think the more comprehensive review should be done by staff, but if you feel differently, you can table it and have him do it. And then if you are in agreement with him, you could approve it or recommend approval to the City Council. So those are your options, and that's the staff report. And like I said, if we want to go over that illustration I put in the packet, or if we need to draw something out, we can do that. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Black. Questions for staff?
I'd like to see the illustration pulled up,
I would too.
and look at it together.
If you can do it on a whiteboard and draw, I really,
With people.
with people on top, and dogs
I mean-
on the side.
I'm not that artistic, but we could do a little something on the whiteboard if we need to. So just to go over this, in this illustration, there's a difference of grade of 4 feet between the neighbors. So you're standing in one neighbor's yard and looking to the other neighbor's yard. So there's a difference of grade of 4 feet, and they want to put a 6-foot fence up. Well, we have to take the average elevation between the differences of grade, which is 2, and that's where we start the fence height. So if they put a 6-foot fence up, the total height would be 8 feet. So they can only put a 4-foot fence up to meet the 6-foot requirement. So the neighbor that you don't see, that you're not in their yard, they would see a 4-foot fence. But the neighbor that you're in their yard looking at the fence, they would have about 6 feet of fence. So
So is that green line going across, is that the yard behind them? Like, is that the
that's just
level?
cutting it in half so you can see that,
Average.
yeah, that's the average.
So the house in the back is, their lot is higher.
Yeah.
So this also is a good illustration because as staff talked about this, we do think that distinguishing between a retaining wall and a fence, I mean, I think the term, like maybe we could even say, well, the wall meant a cinder block wall versus a fence. But there's a significant difference between retaining something and just putting up a fence.
Yeah, structurally, I just think, yeah, weather conditions here in Centerville, it's gonna be, it's a lot.
So this illustrates both, because the block wall is actually retaining something, or hypothetically could be
Hypothetically,
retaining.
yes.
This is just a picture I got off the internet. It's no one's
You've
real
done a great
yard.
job, I
Yeah, and
think.
it's not the, yeah, any.
Shouldn't have said that, I would have believed it.
Okay, so this question's for you, Lisa, then, kind of a legal question. Does the city of Centerville go by the IRC, the International Residential Code?
Yes, we've adopted all the construction codes that the state
Okay.
has adopted.
So when I was researching that, in 2021, it came through that it was 7 feet, right, for the fence, and that is from the ground to the top of the fence.
The IRC? Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with the IRC fence regulation, but was it in one of the,
I can get it.
I think we have the
attached to-
2018 adopted, so that would be a different
This is
code.
the 2021, so it's the more recent one. So then I also called an inspector and asked, not here, and just asked, how do we do that? What is the measurement? And he said it is from the ground to the top. So the retaining wall is part of that. So if the retaining wall, and maybe I was just not quite understanding it completely before, but if the retaining wall is 2 feet tall, then you can only put,
4 foot
Well,
fence.
yeah.
4 foot. 4
so
foot.
the IRC measures from ground
Ground
to the
from
top of
ground.
the structure, whatever it's made of.
Right, doesn't matter if it's cement, it doesn't matter if it's wood, whatever, that is part of the
7 feet
height.
total.
And we can look at that to see, is it part of the body of the IRC or in one of the exhibits?
I'll get that for you. I'll maybe write that down.
So, and then when you say measure from the ground, it's measuring from the ground at the low side, not the
Yeah.
ground at the high side.
Yeah.
So,
Does it
I mean-
distinguish that?
Because what this
I'll
current
ask.
ordinance does is averages the two, and that's your starting place.
right, but even if, so it's 2 feet and we add 6 feet, that's 8 feet, that's over, I don't know how to describe it well.
On this side. But the other
It-
side, you could.
It seems like to me, after talking to him and after researching what I did, that the only way to make it actually work according to code and according to what we have and everything that I read is to like stack it.
Yeah, and that was one of the
Right.
options we gave the applicant was to,
Tier it.
step it. But his steps were really low because of the retaining wall, and he can explain more about
What do
that.
you mean
but-
his steps were low?
Well, like it was like a 1 foot or 2 foot fence on top of the retaining wall.
Oh, because the retaining wall goes big?
Yeah. And he can explain that, and he has some pictures and things to show you,
So
so.
distinction between retaining wall and above-ground wall, that
Right.
Yeah, we could do that.
material, but at the top of grade, it stops being a retaining wall. Then it's just a wall.
Yeah.
Or a fence, you could call it.
Yeah.
But doesn't matter if it's masonry or stone or whatever it is. Anyway,
Right.
Is the whole 4 feet retaining the other side? Or is it like
In
a
this example,
grade?
it would be. And I think in Mr. Jensen's case, it would be as well.
And I think you kind of said this, on the other side of the fence, the neighbor is standing there, if it's a 6-foot fence, they're looking at a 6-foot fence from their
Right,
side.
right. Yeah,
it just creates a 10-foot fence from the other side.
Right.
right.
And that's the biggest issue, is that it creates the 10-foot fence from the other side.
Yeah, because the code doesn't say what side you measure from, it just says the difference in grade between each side of the fence. So, and we can pull that up as well.
I feel like I've seen examples of retaining walls in Centerville that are taller than 8 feet.
Like every windstorm,
Well,
everything comes down.
a lot of people don't come in for a permit for a retaining wall, they just do it, but they're supposed to.
Anything
So-
over 4 feet, right?
Yeah, anything over 4 feet needs a permit. And a lot of people don't know that, so they just don't do it.
And they're not always putting a fence on top.
Right, and some of them are decorative too,
Okay.
so. But the code does say when a difference in grade exists on either side of the fence or wall, then we take the average,
Okay.
so.
Okay, more questions from staff before we move on to the next phase? Okay, so Mr. Jensen, excellent. If you'll come to the podium, please. So, Mr. Jensen, if you're unfamiliar, but also just for the audience in general, when an applicant comes in front of us, we allow them opportunity to speak. This is your chance to explain things that maybe we have missed or need to understand. I will help direct your this phase. This decision today is not whether or not your fence should be modified or would work. We're answering the question, should all fences be re-governed in the way that is being proposed in front of us across the whole city? All right, thank you, sir. So if you'll state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Richard Jensen, on Center Street, just above 4th East, it's 453 East Center Street, on the north side of Center Street. And I've lived in Centerville practically all my life, and I love Centerville. And let's see, Whitney, if you could show
Yep.
my picture real quick. These just show
I know, it's so annoying.
No, it was.
They were
was
right
there.
there.
They're tiny.
they're
I'll keep trying if you
they're
wanna.
really large pictures is the problem, so
Oh, I couldn't open.
if you can't
But
get
it's still
pictures,
loading.
Can we get that one open?
maybe you could get the elevation of the wall.
Yeah, that should be able to open, maybe.
Okay.
I'll keep trying.
We have to have that. Anyway, Whitney's been great to help me figure out the city ordinance, which I didn't understand when we started this process, but now I do. And I think I'm getting close. And if this isn't passed, it's not the end of the world for my opinion. I'll probably go ahead with the wall and live with whatever we get. So we're excited to have a wall, whatever height it is. We'd like it to be bigger or taller because that would give us more privacy. If we don't have that, that's fine. Anyway, my lot slopes both to the west, as you can envision from Center Street, and also to the north. So the difference in height from front, from my curb to my back grade is 8 foot 8 inches. And so to build a concrete wall, you have to step the wall. Now my wall steps 3 steps all the way back. So the height varies quite a bit because when you start out it's low, and then it gets higher, and then it gets lower, and then higher. So my average wall height, if I go by the ordinance, is 4 foot 8 inches. It's not what I want, but I mean it's what the ordinance says, and that's the way it goes. We have a lot of trees along our. Oh, there's a picture. So this is the back part. There's a railroad tie retaining wall right now that's 4 feet tall in the backyard between me and my neighbor. And it's deteriorating. It's been there for a long time. And so that's one thing. I want to replace that with a concrete wall, a retaining wall. The rest, I don't know if you can get at the other pictures. So this is moving towards Center Street, toward the front of the house. The rest of it is just dirt, and so it's mainly just going to be a concrete wall, not a retaining wall for most of it, just the back retaining wall. Anyway, there's a bunch of trees, as you can see, and the problem with the trees is whenever we have our winds, they knock limbs off and ruin or destroy parts of any other fence other than concrete. So we want a fence that is durable, that will stay there. And anyway, that's what our objective is. I met with Corey after I submitted a bunch of times, and he suggested the text amendment, which is what we decided to do, to increase and differentiate between different kinds of walls and fences. And in my opinion, increasing the wall is only compliant with whatever codes that Centerville's adopted and the state's adopted. What gives the Centerville residents more flexibility on how they could have privacy in their backyard. So you build a 6-foot fence, especially if you were in a flat yard, 6 foot, in my opinion, would be great. In my yard, it would be better if I could go a little higher, and my average height would be closer to 6 feet. You can bring up, were you able to bring up the fence elevation? That's a little hard to see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's pretty light. Yeah, right there. Anyway,
Here.
oh, okay. The fence starts right here. There's the curb right over there on the right. It goes over, steps down, goes over and steps down. And then towards the end, since my neighbor has a garage right there, I don't need much of a fence, so that's just the 4-foot retaining wall. So that's the entirety of the fence. It's a little hard to see though, it's pretty light. Do you have any questions for me? I think that's pretty much explains what I'm shooting for.
So where you have the railroad ties, you're taking that out and you're gonna put the wall there, but that's a different part than where you have cement, right?
So the fence will be concrete the whole distance. The retaining wall part will have fence on top of the wall.
The retaining wall of the railroad ties or the
The
cement?
railroad ties will come out, and then concrete will go back in.
Okay,
It will retain, plus there'll be a fence on top of it.
all the
I'm
footings.
structural engineered, so it's.
Interesting, okay, thank you.
That elevation we were looking at, that's all above ground? That concrete wall? That's not a retaining wall, right? That's just above ground concrete wall?
Correct. The front, probably 2/3 is above ground. The back third is retaining and wall.
Okay. Oh, so it is showing the ground line dashed in there?
Yeah, and it does comply, well, kind of, not quite, but getting close. Comply with the average between my neighbor and mine is 4 feet, the difference is 4 feet, so the average is 2 feet. And so I can go 2 feet or 6 feet above the 2 feet. So the wall on his side will be 4 feet, and the wall on my side will be 8 feet.
Whereas right now, all it's allowed is 6 feet, right? By the current ordinance, yeah.
So he could have his 2-foot wall and then a 4-foot fence on top of that for a total of 6 feet.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 2 plus 6, so it's 8 on my side.
No, 2 plus 4. Your side will be 6, their side will be 4.
That doesn't make sense.
Let me pull.
Well, I think you're talking about what you want, what you'd like to do, right?
No, I'm talking about what's allowed.
So look at this. So the retaining wall is 4 feet, and that's from the ground to the top of the retaining wall is 4 feet. And the average of that is 2 feet. So we take the 2 feet into the calculation of the fence height. So for a total of 6, you can add 4. So your fence will be 4.
For my neighbor.
No, that's on your side of the fence.
Okay, maybe I don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's even more than what I thought.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jensen, I appreciate
I
that.
appreciate your consideration.
This is a public hearing, so I am going to open up the public hearing for any comment from those who wish to provide it. If you would like to, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Showing nobody stepped forward, I'll close the public hearing and then take it back to the commission for further discussion. Anybody want to lead out?
So I received further information. Did you want that, or you want me to provide it later? On the code?
Oh, on the yeah, I mean, we can look. The state has adopted the 2021 IRC. We need to update our municipal code, but we're,
Okay, so
you know,
I'll get
they've
that to
adopted
you.
a number of codes. Yeah, and we're happy to look at that as
After.
well. Certain appendix chapters though, so with each code, the state can prepare amendments. So we kind of have to pour through all the statewide amendments to those codes. So every year they adopt a lot of exceptions to the uniform code. And then you can also have local amendments, but I'm not aware of any several local amendments.
Well, I just wonder, because if we are ever going to change it, or we're going to leave it regardless, you know, we'll need to figure.
Well, sure, if it's an IRC regulation, we're mandated by state law to comply.
Oh.
So what I'm saying is that we just need to see where that is in the IRC, because it might be in a chapter that the state hasn't adopted, or something like that.
R105, I don't know.
Yeah, do you have the?
Yeah, it's R105.2 and .3, but retaining walls that, let's see, they're measured from the bottom of the footing to the top of the wall. So for 7 feet. Fence is not over 7 feet high.
So,
Anyway, I'm just giving what I,
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
sounds like it got shorter by 1 foot from what the 2018 was saying, right? I mean, the.
Well, our
current
code
is
is
saying
not,
8 feet.
our code is just a standard Centerville local code. It is not an IRC uniform building code provision. And so the question tonight is, does the IRC now regulate fences that would preempt us from regulating fences on our own?
I guess that's my question. Which one governs?
Well, if the IRC provision referenced is applicable and the state law has adopted it, then the city is mandated to follow it by state law, unless we apply for a local amendment, which you have to go to the building board to do, and we have not done.
But that isn't exactly the question in front of us today,
right.
right?
Right, that would be part, that's why, either denying or tabling, we're happy to look at that and make sure that we're complying with building codes on fence heights, but this is just a local regulation in our zoning code.
Right? Further discussion? So I'll tell you my initial thoughts. This is not a motion. I don't think that the proposed changes are adequate to address all of the needs of the city, especially because this would re-govern all fences across the city, and I don't think that we have adequately considered a lot of the additional new information, plus how the proposed language would actually have an effect on all of the different hypotheticals. I was thinking of different hypotheticals, and I wasn't exactly persuaded that the new language would govern it as well as the old. I would suggest, at least not suggest, I would be initially inclined to say this isn't baked yet. We need something that does a broader look. Those are my thoughts.
I agree that we need more information.
And so would a denial or a tabling, what's the,
It's a fair question. If I may ask, was there an application fee paid?
There was, yes.
Okay.
so if we denied it, would he have to reapply?
If he chose to, yeah, he would have to reapply and pay the
If
fee
we
again.
tabled it, it would just hand it to the staff to be able to redo whatever
Well, staff could,
advice we.
sometimes we get amendments and they bring up a good issue, but the amendment proposed doesn't necessarily solve the issue or creates other issues. And so we have done a city-initiated, so staff could recommend to the planning commission, and the planning commission could say, yeah, we want this looked at more comprehensively. Like, for instance, our parking modification, the planning commission initiated that and said, yes, we'd like staff and the city to pursue that amendment. So we could, under your direction, pursue a more comprehensive amendment, or you can leave it up to the applicant as has been suggested as well.
I think there are too many stones unturned on it. The questions that you had on here, I think we have way too many unanswered questions to say it's okay to move forward on that. I think taking into consideration the wind too, how's the fence going to be engineered,
Yeah.
right? All of those things that you talked about.
And I should know this. If we were to deny the application, what kind of latitude does either staff or this commission have to waive application fees for a reapplication in the future?
That's a good question.
I don't know that we have, we do have some provisions where we refund the fee, but that's before a meeting and all this review. So, I mean, what you could do is just table it and see if the applicant wants to come up with something that's a quick fix that doesn't impact all of these issues. But as staff, we're not sure there is a quick fix that wouldn't implicate all these questions. But you could table it and allow them to do that, but you could also deny it. And
Right.
I can look, I don't think we have the authority to waive a future application fee.
That's fair, and that's sort of what I suspected. And then in addition, I'm curious, and this is more rhetorical, and sort of what's motivating some of my thoughts is the bandwidth for both the commission and staff for everything that we're looking at. I'd like to talk later about the general plan and everything that we're going to be investing in that. So this looms, but it doesn't necessarily loom as large as some of the other things that we're trying to go after. So, just my thoughts. So, any further discussion?
I want to understand then, so if we deny and then it goes back to staff to reconsider, possibly amending the language, in that case, the applicant would just have to wait until the city has come up with adjusted language or something and then reapply.
Well, no, he wouldn't have to, it would just be a city initiated, but I would recommend if the planning commission is interested in that the planning commission direct staff and say, this is a planning commission initiated, change. I think we did something similar with flag lots. We had someone come in with a flag lot ordinance and it was inadequate, but, staff was, the planning commission directed staff to come back with a more comprehensive flag lot ordinance, but the city pays for that whole process. It's just on our timeline though, and then the applicant wouldn't have to come back in if what we adopt addresses this issue.
Yeah, so I guess that's part of my concern is that process could take a while. In the meantime, the applicant's kind of just waiting.
Yeah, so the applicant can drive their own application as well, but staff's recommendation right now is to deny this one.
When you say drive their own application,
They could apply again.
Well, or you could table it and they can,
Yeah.
come back with this one, not have to pay another application fee. They can come back and address some of the concerns that were raised in the staff report, and present a new, a revised, text amendment.
Do we know?
they'd only have the option to do that if we tabled it.
Correct.
If we deny it, they wouldn't have the option to do that.
They would have to come in with a whole new application and pay the fee again, go through the whole process again.
What is the fee?
I think it's $500. So,
All right, shall we move to the motion phase? I'll accept any motions.
I know.
I just wish that we had a clear answer, and I don't feel like we do. We've got, I think I'd like staff to review it, and give us or do we have a definite, and I'm just missing it. I feel like Lorraine's got, with the IRC adopted, but have we, I'm confused on that.
Yeah, I think staff has reviewed this application as it stands and is
Okay.
recommending denial.
Okay.
Because it is creating a higher wall than currently is allowed in or a higher fence than currently allowed in our code.
Okay.
And for some of the other reasons set forth in the staff report.
This might be kind of a dumb question, but if the neighbor wanted to build a fence, would they only be allowed to build a 4 fence too?
no, if it was on their property, they could build a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, just,
Because they're
But
on
if
the
it's
low
on the
side.
property line, I mean,
there you go.
So if it's on their property completely, because there's not there is still the difference in grade, so that's probably something that we need to look into with a more comprehensive review, because I'm not sure there's a clear answer on that one.
It's like, as the neighbor, I don't want a 4-foot fence.
Right.
Right.
Well, what's the point of a 4-foot fence for you,
Yeah.
as the neighbor? Yeah.
I like that.
So,
Picket fence.
Yeah.
it would almost
My
be,
dog's gonna jump right over that.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, if there was to be, I mean, it would almost seem, I guess not more dangerous, but if you're gonna put something on to retain the wall right there, you want a 6-foot fence on the other side, which then, yes, would create an 8-foot fence or however
Yeah.
tall.
Yeah.
But
That's
for
true.
the neighbor to the east, that would be ridiculous to like, sorry, you can only have a 4-foot fence. Well, that looks ridiculous and
Yeah.
it's not, and
Hopefully your
it's
kid doesn't
unsafe.
fall.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah. So I think the policy set is, you know, in Centerville, we allow 6-foot wall, or 6-foot fences. And then, but when you add the grade calculation into it, this is where it gets complicated. But if you don't put the grade calculation in, then people could have a very tall fence. And so this was kind of a compromise to say, to try and address that grade change. I think, you know, it's simple on flat ground. Maybe we could address something if it was just, you know, the fence on a retaining wall or some distinction like that. But I think that if you just did away with the grade calculation, we would have a lot taller fences that we were not expecting and that neighbors are not going to be happy with. So those are some of our concerns. And why this raises, I think staff has admitted that this raises a lot of issues, and there are some situations that are not necessarily equitable when we, you know, apply this code. For instance, the hillside overlay has a different calculation on, you know, fences, and why is that? So I think we could certainly look into seeing what, you know, what other cities have done and the pros and cons, and, you know, whether there's some sort of average as well, but.
So just so I understand, if we decide to table this, would staff still have the opportunity to review it and amend language?
Well, when an applicant revises it, then it would come to staff and staff would analyze it and, give another recommendation to the planning commission.
But just for that one case, not to change the language for the city?
no, if you table this application, staff would look at the revised application that came in, but staff wouldn't go ahead by themselves to revise the language of this code. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Well, I think, are you asking if it would permanently change it?
Yeah.
It would permanently change it. If we agree to it, we have to agree. If we agree, then it permanently gets changed.
So it would go to city council, city
Right.
council would decide,
We
and
would
it would,
suggest to city
yeah,
council, and they would decide, and then it would be permanent. And
Yeah.
then
Well, it would be in our code until amended.
yeah.
until amended.
Well, with that clarification, I would move to table this rather than deny.
Okay. Is that your full motion?
That's my motion. Yeah.
Okay. I would look for a second for anybody.
I second it.
Okay, second from Commissioner Hawk. Any discussion on the motion in front of us?
I just have a concern. First of all, $500 is a lot of money. I don't want you to have to pay that again. And we all have really good hearts. We always try and do the right thing. And with that being said, I'm just not comfortable with the way it's trying to be changed, because we don't have enough information. We don't have enough of everything that we need for this. And if the tabling is just so that he comes back, but it doesn't change anything from our perspective where we currently are, then that's where I have a little bit of kind of confusion, and I don't even know what the word would be. I just feel like that's not where we need to be, because you're asking us to deny it based on, for these actions and reasons, and tabling it would only allow him, which is good, to come up with another solution. And if he comes up with that solution and it's not adequate according to code, then we're back to square one again.
Right, but that's the application process.
And that's his choice if he wants to amend his current application.
Okay.
Well, see, that's what I was trying to clarify, is if we do take that path, as tabled, they come back with a new application, there is still the opportunity to make the permanent change for the city, right? It doesn't prevent.
Yes, this is already on our list of things to fix eventually, yes. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, so for instance, yeah, we have a long list of things we need to fix in our code, and we try to work on those as time permits, and yeah, this is one that's on the list, so.
Okay. My inclination is to vote in favor of the motion, in part because it allows the applicant to re-examine the proposed language and carry the or to address the items we've raised today. I will note that the motion itself does not direct staff to take any action, and I am in favor of that because in terms of bandwidth, I do not think that this should be the kind of thing that we should be addressing given all of the other items we have in front of us, even though it is an issue. And even though I think that it leads to an disfavorable outcome for the applicant in his own personal home. So it needs to be addressed. I just don't think that I'm in favor of a motion that would be read to include a directive to staff to start working on this. So that's the way I understand the motion. Further discussion or move to voting? Okay, we'll start down here.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. It is tabled. So Mr. Jensen, if you have further questions, if you could direct those to staff, and hopefully we can assist you. And I just wanted to say it is both commendable and applaudable that you've brought this before us. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for your everything. Yeah. All right. Moving on to the second item on the agenda, open and public meetings training. Ms. Romney.
No, it's,
Oh, excellent.
Hello,
Welcome.
City Reporter Jennifer.
my name is Jennifer Robison. I'm the city recorder. I have communicated with most of you via email, but I haven't met a lot of you face to face, so nice to put faces to names here. We are required to do an annual Open and Public Meetings Act training, so that's what I'm here to do today. Chair Care, in front of you, there should be a little USB plug-in. There, I'll just come over really quick.
On the screen?
Yes, it's this thing right here. This will just let me share my screen. And then Whitney, you can switch that over to the HDMI too.
oh, yes.
So this may not be as fun as fence regulations, but instead of me just lecturing you on open and public meetings, I do like to make it a little bit more fun and interactive. So we're gonna do a Kahoot quiz. Have any of you ever done a Kahoot? Actually, maybe some of you were here last year when I did my training, so it is the same as it was last year, so let me just get my screen shared here really quick.
This is why we've turned the training over to Jennifer. Makes it fun.
It's better than me just sending out a link and say, hey, do this online.
We played it last week with the city council and it was fun.
We do try to rotate annually how we do training, because we have to do this annually and some other trainings, and so sometimes we'll do it live, sometimes we will give you a video, you know, depending on the year.
Oh, here we go. Okay,
We need a.
so
Hi,
if you just
guys.
want to grab out,
Thanks for
anybody in the audience is welcome to play. You probably won't know any of the answers, but so you just grab your phone or a device and scan this QR code that's on here. A couple things, you're not required to use your real name. We're not here to judge anybody for getting wrong answers. You can use a nickname or a fake name.
Which we encourage.
We do encourage that. Also, the scores are calculated by accuracy and by speed. So if you get the right answer the fastest, then you get more points. So, yes. I guess, we don't really need sound, do we? You can
No.
turn on the sound.
The Kahoot sound is not fun.
The sound is kind of annoying. It makes it more stressful.
It's funny how they
All right, who's the
ask you to
lazy
pay
golfer?
extra for good
That's
sounds.
me.
Nice. Shady?
Whitney did come and play with the city council last week, and she schooled everybody, so
Oh, yeah.
I think she's disqualified from
I won't play,
tonight.
I won't play.
Yeah.
I was a city recorder, so I won't play.
Okay, you've got 6. Okay, so I'm waiting for at least one more. Are you playing Lisa?
Well, I can't think of a nickname.
Now we know who she is if she does. It's not gonna be anonymous.
Well, we've got 5 on there, so there should be one more commissioner, and then maybe Lisa.
I wonder who that is.
Well done. Well done.
Okay, oh, there is some sound. Oh, just in the background. Okay, everybody on? Yep. Okay. First question.
Are we all just spinning? I'm not sure what we're doing. We're just answering on our phone.
What is OPMA an acronym for? So the answers will come up and then you'll select the correct answer on your phone.
Oh, they're all so close.
Okay.
5 of us.
So OPMA is the Open and Public Meetings Act. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, the purpose of the Open and Public Meetings Act is just to ensure that the city takes its actions and conducts its deliberations regarding the public's business openly. And this applies whenever we have a quorum present. For a planning commission, I believe quorum is 4, right? This doesn't count for like, if there's like a chance social gathering at like a party, or you all happen to be at the same grocery store or something, that's not going to make up a quorum, just as long as you don't discuss city business in that situation. Like, for example, sometimes at city events like the 4th of July or something, everybody might be there, but that won't be a public meeting as long as we're not discussing city business or making any decisions in places like that. So otherwise, we will be having open public meetings here that will be noticed in advance so that the public knows what's going on. Any questions about OPMA in general?
Nope.
Okay. Anonymous is in the lead.
Oh, smarty pants.
How is someone
You should not be playing.
Yeah,
Just
answer
the quickest?
just the
opt
fastest.
out for like 2.
Okay.
It is speed and accuracy.
Okay.
So,
But I
okay,
know that it's speed.
next question. How far in advance must meetings be noticed to the public? Oh,
Spread across the board.
this is 24 hours. According to state law, meetings do need to be published 24 hours in advance. We do try to publish our meetings and send out agendas the Friday before, and that's just as a courtesy to you guys to be able to review your information over the weekend and to be prepared for the meeting, but we are only required to publish it 24 hours in advance.
So just to comment on that as well, though, that's the Open Meetings Act, but we also have the Land Use Act, which says that we have to give sometimes 10-day notice or 3-day notice for certain types of applications. Like if we're having a public hearing, there might be a 10-day notice, which is difficult. And so that's why it does take some time to get applicants, on the meeting, because we do have to know in advance.
So some
Yeah, thank you.
various issues on your agenda might require additional noticing, but that kind of varies from issue to issue. But meetings in general just require 24-hour notice, so. Okay. Anonymous, Chair Bear sneaking up in second place.
It's okay,
Okay, next
I'll throw a
question. How many members must vote to enter a closed session? This one's tricky because Planning Commission doesn't often have closed sessions.
Literally don't.
I should turn this over.
Hey, it is two-thirds, and this is two-thirds of members that are present. So if one person's absent, then it'll just be two-thirds of present members. And I don't know if Planning Commission never has closed sessions.
Are we gonna
Yeah,
start?
the reasons we had a closed session with the planning commission during the Walmart hearings. We had,
Oh, yes.
this whole room was so full, we had to cancel our meeting because we were not to code on how many people. We had people sitting here, so we had to move to the junior high. And so you can have a closed session for purposes of security, systems and other things. And so we met prior to that meeting to help the planning commission understand exit strategy and other things. We might also meet with the planning commission to talk about pending or reasonably imminent litigation. So we have met a few times to help you understand if we're in litigation. But that's about, or the purchase or sale of real property, but I can't recall bringing one of those to the planning commission.
City council does more often have closed sessions. I think I talked to Corey and he said as long as he was the director, he maybe had one or two closed sessions with planning commission, so.
Yeah, probably the Walmart and
Yeah.
palm tree issue.
Hey,
I know where you're going with that one.
Ooh,
I'm on fire. Woo! I mean, that's not me. I mean, if that were me.
it's two T's, isn't it?
which of the following is not a reason to enter a closed session? We kind of just gave you a little
Ah.
preview.
Oh, not. I answered it wrong. Shoot, I told you.
Sorry, I do have
Did
a
this
couple.
to me.
I did
Do have
it
a
on
couple
purpose.
trick
He
questions.
said, you're going to, I don't know. Look at her.
These are trick questions.
There are a couple trick questions. These three reasons listed are all reasons that we can enter into a closed session, so the answer is none of the above. Sorry, that was mean.
Yeah, it was.
That was mean. Sorry. I'll change that for next year.
You gotta challenge us, right?
Yeah. You have to read all your options.
Streak of loss. Oh, thanks, Care Bear. Whatever you are, Chair Bear.
Okay, next question. An audio recording of a closed session is not required if the purpose of the meeting is exclusively to discuss what?
Is this the other trick question?
This
I
is
have no
a
idea.
half trick. Okay. You all got this one right, actually. This one was a half trick question because there were two correct answers. We do take audio recordings and minutes of closed sessions unless they're one of these two things. If we're talking about the character, competency, or the mental health of an individual, or if we're talking about the deployment of security personnel or devices, then we won't take a recording of that and there won't be minutes of it. We'll just have the chair or the mayor will sign an affidavit saying this is the only thing that was discussed in this meeting, and that will be notarized, and then that kind of acts as the minutes for that meeting. But everything else, we do have a recording, and we keep minutes, but they're kept confidential. They're not made, obviously, they're not publicized.
I think the important point on the closed meeting is that the real intent of the law is that, you know, generally as like the city council legislative body, the requirement is we basically doing the public's business. And so if we're doing the public's business, it should be in public and they should understand why we're making those decisions. And so the law really wants you to talk about in an open meeting why you're making your decision. And so, anyway, I think.
Right, and when we do go into a closed session, you can only talk about those things in the closed session. You can't, start going off and talking about business that should be discussed in an open meeting, so.
There's only about 5 topics
Yeah.
that we could actually talk about.
These last questions make it seem like you're gonna be having closed sessions all the time, but you probably won't ever have a closed session, so. Okay, let's see who's in the lead now. Chair Bear, holding his place, their place, sorry, I don't know if it's a male or female. Okay, next question. Minutes are the official recording of a meeting. How long are we required to retain meeting minutes? I had a fun time selecting all my gifts for. Permanently, we keep minutes forever. Not a lot to discuss on that. We just keep minutes forever.
This is a terrible way to introduce me to this.
And I've only been here for a couple months. I'm like,
I guess my comment
I got
on,
on the board, guys.
my comment on minutes, though, is that they are very important. So
Okay,
we
I've been
keep
off
them
the board the whole
permanently.
time.
Occasionally,
It's okay.
as staff, we'll use them to go back and do research to find out. So, recently we were doing some street vacation amendment, and we had to go back and kind of look at the history of when these streets were even created or approved and platted. So we do use them. And my tip is always, because I know it's hard to read through all the minutes, but the planning commission does a really good job. But the one suggestion that I have for the commission is that if you made the motion, if you could just look at that one motion and make sure it was as you stated it, and at least we'll get the motions, there might be some other areas, but I like if we just have one person, if you made the motion, then, try to remember in the minutes whether or not it was stated correctly. I mean, read the entire minutes.
It's a part of the board.
Hey, next question.
I'm killing it.
True or false? Planning commission members may text and email each other while a meeting is convened. False. While you're in an open and public meeting, you should not be texting or emailing each other, not having little side conversations. In addition to this, we also want to avoid creating like an electronic meeting via email, like outside of a regular, like if we're all just at home at your jobs, we want to avoid creating a meeting or having in-depth discussions when we're not in a public setting and not within a public meeting. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. But yes, especially while we're here, make sure you're not texting each other, oh, I think we should do this, you should vote this way with me, that kind of thing.
So sometimes you'll want to text something, or, like an applicant brings something, but you can, in limited circumstances, just say, we'll text it, to staff. But we recommend that you actually keep your phones down. And this is the law on texting, but I also think that suggests that having sidebars is also not recommended, because sometimes, it's distracting, it is picked up on the mics, and so it's hard for the minutes recorder to understand who's talking, what's relevant, and sometimes the public doesn't know, oh, are you laughing, like if you're saying something and then you're laughing, they don't know if you're laughing at something, or laughing at them. So anyway, it's just more respectful to try and keep the entire board's conversations public.
So one at a time, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, sometimes you're talking over, but it just, all talking, because we don't know, or the applicant doesn't know. But these mics pick it up, and if you're on YouTube, they also pick up those sidebars. So you might just be talking about a dog or something, but.
Hey,
Hold your spot, man.
here we go.
Strong.
What's the minimum number of members that must be present at the anchor location in order to hold an electronic
I lost.
meeting?
I don't even know.
Also kind of a big one, but
This is-
fun after COVID.
I don't know this for.
All the electronic meeting statutes were changed.
Oh, interesting. This one is actually 0 because of COVID. They changed the policy so that we can have electronic meetings and nobody actually has to be here, and that just hasn't changed since then, so it's still 0. If there ever is a case that you're having an electronic meeting and you're all meeting on Zoom or something, there probably would be a staff member here or somebody here in case somebody from the public showed up, but.
Because we do have to have the anchor location, so yeah, staff, somebody would have to be here.
Right. But during COVID, when all the meetings were on Zoom, there wasn't really an anchor location. They said this meeting is being held electronically via Zoom, and Zoom was the anchor location, so. But yes, now we do have an anchor location. That was kind of a trick question, too. Okay.
Darn second.
True or false? The planning commission should avoid talking about matters that are not listed on the agenda. Oh, that was fast. True. We have an agenda for a reason. Obviously, we want to stick to the items that are on the agenda. Occasionally, discussion will kind of start to go off like this, and we want to make sure that we keep it to the items that are listed on the agenda. If that does start to happen, for sure, no action or vote can be taken on anything that's not on the agenda. So even if you start discussing something, you can't make any decisions unless something's been noticed previously to the public. But yeah, for the most part, we only want to talk about, not for the most part, all the time, we only want to talk about what's only on the agenda. So, yeah. Okay, Chair Bear holding his place. A full audio recording is required from all public meetings except nice. Site visits. I don't know if the planning commission does site visits at all. So this may not be relevant to either occasionally the city
We
council.
can, we just don't very often.
Yeah, I mean, the city council doesn't often either, but occasionally you'll go and visit a site or like go to the park or go to the whatever. And we don't do audio recordings of those, but they are still noticed to the public saying there will be a quorum going to do this site visit, but then we don't take audio recording. But for all these other things, yes, we do have audio recordings and they do published accordingly. Probably not too relevant for you guys. How soon must the audio recording and approved minutes be made available to the public? Only one person got this one right. 3 days. And this is more for me than for you guys. As soon as you approve your minutes and your meeting within 3 days, I will need to have that posted and made available to the public.
Oh, so it's not us, it's you,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So,
I thought we approved minutes like our last, when we approved them from like 3 weeks prior. And that's okay
Right.
to do, but you have to have 3 days once we approve.
yeah, once they're approved, then they do have to be made available
Gotcha.
to the public within 3
But
days.
there's no time
so-
frame on us approving them.
Well, they are supposed to be approved within 30 days.
Okay, so like usually the
If
next-
for some reason you have meetings canceled and you're not meeting for 30
Just holidays.
days, right, then what I would do is I would publish the draft minutes.
Okay.
And then once you do re-meet and approve those minutes, then I would make those public. Or we can also do an electronic approval where I could send out minutes to you via email and say, if you have any changes to these, let me know. And if you don't, then they'll just be deemed approved. But that doesn't happen often because you have pretty regular meetings and we keep on a pretty good approval schedule, so. Yep. And just so you all know, all of the audio recordings and the minutes are available to view on our website. You can view them on the State Public Notice website. You all should have access to the board portal and you can go back and view your old minutes there as well. If any of you have issues getting onto the board portal, let me know. Sometimes people have problems getting onto that, so I can
I
definitely
do
help you.
log on occasionally to watch reruns, it's kinda,
Oh, on YouTube?
Date night. Yeah.
like, honey, you gotta see this last one, this is a good one. Right here, right here.
How about last week?
Okay, think we've got, oh, this is the last one. Bonus round question. What year did Thomas Grover settle Centerville? Dude.
I think I got that right.
That's not Thomas Grover, by the way. That's some dude off the internet.
That's some dude.
1847, according to Wikipedia. So- And it was originally, what was it, dual creek?
settlement.
Dual settlement is what Centerville originally was.
And then it changed to Cherry something. I can't remember what it
I
was.
like Centerville. That's a guess. Over Dual.
That has nothing to do with open and public meetings. That was just Centerville trivia. Okay, here's our final winner's podium. Third place,
Nice
Pat.
work.
Hey.
Second place, Living Golfer. And first place, dun dun dun,
One more right answer.
Chair Bear. Okay.
I want a TV dinner if it makes you feel better. You did? No. Brian told me he would give me one, but I never got it.
Okay, that concludes our training for this year. I hope you learned something new and try to keep all of those things in mind as you are doing the city's business. So, thanks.
Can I ask you a question? Is there any, like, committee or commission that, like, a Parks and Rec commission, do they have to follow these exact same?
Yep, so the Open and Public Meetings Act applies to all of our city committees and commissions. Those committees don't meet as regularly, they're usually once a month, but we still have to publish their meetings 24 hours in advance.
So even if they meet
And they
once a
have-
month, they have to be 3 days after the meeting, it has to be approved and available to the public?
You mean the minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, the Parks and Rec Committee, you're on the Parks and Rec Committee, so when you guys
It
would,
was, but yeah.
yeah, when you guys would approve your minutes, then they'd come to me and I would,
Oh, so that's
Publish
after
them.
we approve them?
Yeah,
yep,
so that's
after
why I was confused
approved,
too.
yep, approved minutes.
I was gonna say, cause I'm in charge of the Parks and Rec Committee in Layton, and I was like, we don't put those out for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes things
makes
do go a little bit slower with those committees just because they sometimes meet very infrequently, but all the same rules still apply.
Yeah, and those were sort of amendments to the law because it was taking a long time to get minutes out and people are waiting, like there's, some cities have a 14-day appeal period. So you might end the meeting, but you don't really have all the information or the minutes, for that. And so part of that, they also said that your preliminary minutes are public. So they're public at the time we stamp them preliminary, saying, hey, they haven't looked at these yet, this is
Yeah.
our best effort, but yeah, then we have to adopt them and get them out to the
Yeah,
public.
so that's what I was saying, like, for example, for a committee that only meets once a month, if they cancel a meeting, then that right there is 2 months before their meeting again. So we would just publish their draft minutes so that something is available to the public. And then once they do eventually meet again and approve those minutes from however far back, then I would make the approved minutes public and those would be the official record.
Yeah, I was also going to say, if you like late night reading, you can get on our Centerville Municipal Code online, and we do have our minutes approval policy on there that kind of talks through how we can approve these things, and also our electronic meeting.
Second date night for you.
That's what it is. Next week's date, this week's date. Rerunning tonight.
Okay, well, you all passed, you've all received your annual training, so
Thank you so much.
same time next year.
Okay, moving on to the Community Development Director's Report. I'd also like to hear about who is the Community Development Director.
Okay.
But
Sorry, Whitney, do you want to switch the
Oh, yes.
thing really quick? Thank
you want me to unplug this?
Sure, that'd be good.
But yeah, so Mrs. Black, I guess it's up to you.
Yes, so we are still in the process of finding a new director, so I am the interim still. We have interviewed a few good candidates, and we're going to interview a couple more, so hopefully we'll have someone soon. But the report is just, the next meeting will be February 28th. We canceled the February 14th one, if you'll remember. So February 28th is our next meeting. The deadline to be on that is February 7th, so we still have some time for people to get on that agenda. And then I just wanted to kind of update you on your last meeting. So I've gone through the parking ordinance, and I did find a stipulation for that conditional use permit that we were talking about last time. And it does say that if there's more than one use on a lot, that the parking spaces need to be provided in an amount equal to the total of the requirements for each use, unless there's a shared parking permitted. So I still need to go and research if that lot has a shared parking agreement. If they don't, then that applicant will need to go to each use and get the information we need to calculate the parking. So I will continue to work with him on that. And then the last thing that was on our agenda last time was the subdivision ordinance. The city council did approve the subdivision ordinance with some changes recommended by staff that we talked about at our meeting. And they ultimately decided to keep the public hearing at the preliminary subdivision. So we'll continue to have public hearings for every preliminary subdivision. And that's my report.
Thank you so much. At some point, I would like to go into sort of our yearly planning goals,
Okay,
but, I mean, we're sort of in limbo,
yeah,
and I don't want to shoulder you with that,
I appreciate that.
unless you're stepping forward and volunteering.
No?
But yeah, we've got a lot of things looming, and we're down a teammate, so.
Yeah, I think we are all aware of those issues that we need to get on top of, and we are just kind of in limbo, waiting for the new director to come in and kind of start all of that, so.
If we do have a light agenda, we could talk about the goals if you want, and then when we do have the new director, just revisit them or talk
Yeah.
about them. But we are hoping to have someone, but we don't know when that will be.
Fair enough. Thank you. All right, let's go over the minutes for the last meeting. I hope you all had the scintillating opportunity to do the rerun. So anybody have changes for the first page? Second page? Third page? Fourth page? Be funny if there were. All right, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes as unamended.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
A second? Who?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Let's just all vote together. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. And I think that concludes our agenda. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.